and then Kike Hernandez. He was back in Dodger camp today after going out to Puerto Rico for a couple games.
Why doesn't he just stay out there?
I mean, he does have he just had a kid. B, like he does have some some rehab work and stuff to do over here. But I think it
They
was
do it there. What do they? I mean, what is there like some machine that they only have at Dodger camp?
Hello and welcome back to the Dodgers Post. I'm Jack Harris, the California Post Dodger beat writer, along with our baseball columnist, Dylan Hernandez, Dylan, I hope you've enjoyed your week vacation since leaving Arizona, because if you can't tell by the sound of my voice, it's been a tough week here uh, in Phoenix.
You sound terrible. What happened?
It's too much baseball. I got sick. Uh, I've been, okay, so I started feeling bad Thursday. Started feeling much worse Friday, and Saturday and Sunday I couldn't even go to the ballpark, which like I've been covering this team now 5 years. I've never had to actually not go because I was sick for a day.
Quitter.
Um,
You think Joe Sherman would just roll
so
over like a dog like that?
so that it was my concern also because when this happens, you're like, okay, well, man, like what if something happens? Like it's not, you didn't want to emergency fly out here to to fill in for me. But this is how boring Dodgers camp has been, is that I can miss 2 days and like literally nothing happened. Like it's just, and that's how it's been going. As we touched on last show, it's been a camp where most guys have been okay. There haven't really been injuries. I think the most interesting thing that we're going to see, at least in the near term, is coming tomorrow or the day this podcast comes out. Roki Sasaki is going to throw in a B game on the backfields. Are they trying to hide him now? But other than that, yeah, it's kind of like we talked about last week. It's you know, it's been a boring camp. The big piece of news this week: Santiago Espinal is going to make the opening day roster. That one,
You were you're like bragging now because you wrote about him
because I
for.
was on him early. That's right.
All right. Well, let's talk about some actual baseball that's being played right now. World
Okay.
Baseball Classic. Are you into this at all?
The World Baseball Classic. I am into it. Now, I think, I don't know. I'm into it. I also think that there's a degree of, uh, it's cool to watch. I think what's missing is like some of the top players being out
Right.
is disappointing. And I especially felt that like watching some of these Puerto Rico games, which have been really cool, probably like the coolest part of this to me. Um, what did you just drink?
Grapefruit juice. I
Okay.
love grapefruit juice. It's my favorite kind of juice. You know what the best part of grapefruit juice is?
What?
Nobody in my family likes grapefruit juice, so I can drink
You
it. But
just
like I buy
all
grapefruit
of it.
juice, and I know it's all mine.
All right. Is that how the WBC goes too? You just turn it on and then the TV's all yours because I think those are like the two camps, right? It's either like for baseball diehards or a wider audience. Now, I mean, if you're a baseball diehard, like it's been cool watching again, like the Puerto Rican games, the Dominican games. Honestly, like the US games have been like they haven't played that well. It's been kind of boring. The Japanese games have looked pretty interesting if you've been waking up in the middle of the night to watch them.
Yeah, they can't pitch, man.
Yeah, it's
Who
a
would have thought?
problem. Um, here's my take on the WBC because I do think that it's penetrated the culture in a way that we haven't really seen that tournament do before. I think it's been reflected in just the conversations around it, the TV ratings, the fact that Ohtani hitting that grand slam in the first game got whatever dozens of millions of views on Twitter. Uh, Here's my take. This WBC is a sign of why the Dodgers are good for baseball. Because if you look at this tournament, right, like think about the key players, the key characters in this. It's Ohtani and Yamamoto and Team Japan and that whole dynamic, which a lot of that, whatever, was baked in, the fact that they were good in 2023. But that team has a different resonance because of those players, because of the Dodgers, because of that connection. And then if you even look at the other like top players in the tournament, right? Bryce Harper, Juan Soto, um, Kyle Schwarber, uh, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. These are all guys that have seen their profiles raised because they've gone up against the Dodgers in the past couple postseasons at
Yeah,
a
you're
time
right. Bryce Harper was a
everybody's.
real nobody until he played the
Well,
Dodgers.
I mean, but I think it's different, right? Like the Dodgers have drawn in, like I think that
Yeah. No,
this
I'm
is
with you.
it
I'm
hits
with you
on
on that. I'm with
it,
you
it
on that.
hits on the main point, right? Of like people might hate the Dodgers and hate what they're doing to the sport, but they are drawing attention to it in a way that is making even these kinds of things giving it a different kind of relevance, right? And maybe it's just because, we're around the Dodgers and that's the lens I view all of this through as I watch. Um, but that's kind of what struck me is okay, all these people that have become, I think, main characters in baseball postseasons because they're trying to take down the Dodgers or part of them or whatever. Like this is another way to showcase them in a way that I think, and this is where the tournament itself is good. There's a lot of dramatic moments. The emotions and the passions are incredible. I think it's been interesting watching some of the discourse around like Kike Hernandez said, you know, winning in a WBC might mean more, means, has a different meaning than even winning a World Series. And I think that part's been interesting because it hits on for these guys. Um, there's something about playing in this tournament that gives you a feeling that isn't replicated even when you're, in the MLB postseason or playing in a World Series. And I think getting to see these guys who have become big stars in the sport and have helped drive the sport's popularity play in that kind of environment has been very cool to watch. And I think this tournament has done the best job of kind of capturing all of that, even through only like the pool stage right now. I think it'll only get better with the knockout games.
Yeah, I want to go back to what Kike said, right? And he said it's was like, no, this is even higher, right? And I think we got to kind of remember that everywhere other than here, right? Or like in where they actually like baseball, right? I'm not counting like Israel and those made up teams, whatever, right? Great Britain, those aren't like real baseball teams. Um, right? Um, no, this thing matters like a lot more, right? And kind of the funny episode, right? The thing that I thought was hilarious, right? And I wrote about it earlier was when Yamamoto came out of the bullpen in game seven, the Japanese media was appalled by this, right? How dare they risk injuring Yamamoto in something as trivial as the World Series when the WBC was coming up the next year. And I actually, the thing is like as I'm watching this, I just can't help but think just like what a wasted opportunity, right? Or even like, look, this is better than nothing, right? But they need a tournament, I think, right? Like the World Cup where, in soccer, where it's just kind of like, okay, no insurance, none of this BS, right? The teams can't interfere, blocking guys, where you just kind of let them go, right? And because like what you're seeing, I think like with Major League Baseball and frankly with like all of our professional sports here, and this is probably why I do think that like, right? I mean, people complain about the NBA right now, right? That the rivalries aren't what they used to be. And I think part of this is the money, the money here is just so big now. These are like clearly right American sports league job right leagues. These are jobs, and it feels like they're jobs, right? And look, and that's not all bad because you get guys coming out
Not
from
even jobs. It's like something, they're like investments almost.
right, yeah, and they're look, and the players look right. You're getting paid that much money, right? You're going to get guys that are going to be in shape to play all 162, right? A lot of players are going to be in shape all year round, and you won't have sorry to use like a soccer comparison, but a Diego Maradona who's going to go on a coke binge, throughout the week and just show up on the weekend and play, right? That's just not going to happen. So you do right. It does assure a certain level of like professionalism. But I do think, kind of like you talk about kind of the passion of all of this, right? And just and the amount of fans it's drawing in, right? That are probably not watching Major League Baseball on a day-to-day basis, right? I mean, for a lot of these people, you live in another country, people, right? I always kind of find it funny. I mean, even though like it does kind of happen at times during like the World Series and stuff, where like Japan does kind of stop to, okay, if I'm home, I'm going to watch this. People have jobs, right? People have things to do. Like it's not like the world really kind of revolves just around anything that's going on here. And when you get countries involved, you kind of see this outpouring of passion. And I actually think, again, right, because you talked about guys missing, right? And that is kind of the big problem with the event, the way it's kind of structured right now, is the fact that, like, yeah, you got these insurance issues. Obviously, teams have invested a lot of money, right? And there's probably no workaround, right? You won't be able to work around this. In soccer, you have FIFA, who kind of controls the whole sport. Every league is kind of subservient to them, you know, and it's just like, no, everybody's going to be available. End of story, right? Major League Baseball in this case owns, right, runs the tournament. The teams in their league obviously don't want their guys playing all the time. So there's going to kind of be this conflict. But I actually think that baseball would come out ahead, right? If you do this tournament like in a real kind of way, right? Maybe in the group stage, everybody plays each other twice. Like, expand it out a bit, right? Really carve out like a month, 3 weeks, for you really kind of play this whole thing out. And I actually think that baseball will like benefit like a lot from that because, like you said, right? You brought up kind of this example of all these guys, right? That, you kind of remember them from like what they did against the Dodgers, right? You could also have the opposite thing, right? That's the guy from Venezuela that shut out like the U.S. in that big game, and that could kind of become these signature moments that you kind of then,
I
right,
mean,
follow back into the
the
sport.
WBC was Otani's signature moment of his
Yeah.
whole MLB career before he got to the
Yeah.
Dodgers.
So I just kind of would like to see them just kind of like, and again, I don't know when the right time to do this is. Obviously the Scooble thing I thought was kind of disappointing, right? In that, like, look, I totally get it. The guy's in line to make 400 or $500 million this offseason. I 100% understand. I'm sure Boris is very relieved right now that he decided to not pitch, but the fact that he even considered it, I also think shows again just how kind of intoxicating that environment is, right? And how different it is than everything else. And so, I really think that baseball would benefit from just kind of having, again, a tournament where it's like, okay, we're going to throw the best against the best and kind of see what happens. And it's by, country's a good way to kind of divide it, right? I don't think it's so much, along like nationalistic lines as much as it is probably against, as it is like among like cultural lines, right? I
Mhm.
mean, because obviously we've seen a lot of American-born players who obviously, come from different cultural backgrounds that they feel very tied to, and that's kind of what they're representing, right? It's not so much like, okay, I know, the Venezuelan manager had to come out and say something about, I'm not here to talk about, our politics or anything. But I don't think that the players, that's what they're representing, right? They're representing kind of like a culture, a certain feeling that you kind of have inside you, and I think that that's why this tournament's such a big draw.
Yeah, I mean, just look at like the Italian team with their espresso shots and the dugout. It's like I was, and like here's a good. So as I was sick this weekend, I went to my parents' house to lay low one day, and like my dad, who's like he's like he watches the Dodgers, and he grew up watching the Braves, but like he would not be watching baseball just for fun. And like he was, like I had the games on, and like he was getting into it. Oh, what's going on here? Like, what? Like, how does this tournament work? How does Team Italy field a team? Like, do they just pick people with like vowels at the end of their last names? But like that's, I think it gives the sport kind of another entryway to resonate with people that, yeah, I think you see right now is working in a way that I don't think past WBCs have. Okay, let's focus on some of the Dodger players in the WBC. You've been following Team Japan closely from afar. You're going to be in Miami next week for the knockout rounds. How has Ohtani looked? Obviously, the stats have been good. Uh, Tell me about, I know you wrote about this, the leadership role he has taken on this team, because I think it's going to be interesting for Dodger fans to kind of see and hear the way that Ohtani has kind of taken the reins of this Japanese team, and the kind of culture he's brought to it, the atmosphere he's brought to it.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I think in Japan, right, ability obviously matters a lot, but so does seniority, right? And I think kind of the older guy naturally is going to be kind of the leader of the team. The previous tournament, Darvish was really kind of the guy that was really kind of credited for kind of rallying everybody. Now, you kind of did see a passing of the torch at the end of that tournament, where before the game, right, the championship game against the U.S., Ohtani gives this, right, he gave this speech that worked really well. But this time he kind of went in as kind of the undisputed like leader, and so yeah, one of the younger pitchers who pitches for the Nippon Ham Fighters, which is his former team. So that makes him kind of like a kohai of Ohtani, and so Ohtani can kind of boss him around and kind of half playfully told him like, I don't care if you don't sleep, you need to think of a celebration for us. So first he came up with like a teacup celebration, just holding a Japanese like teacup. Ohtani didn't like it, said go back to work.
Just holding a teacup?
Just, well, you kind of rub it.
What is the celebration?
You kind of rub the thing, I guess.
What, like a
It's like
genie
formal. Yeah,
in
it's
a
like
lamp?
it's a formal, like in a tea ceremony, I guess. I don't know. I don't do tea ceremonies.
Okay.
But he
I
told
would
them,
have
hey,
had him go back and change it too.
yeah, go back, do it again. And so now it's kind of this tea whisking thing, right? And not to get too technical, but like one of the letters, so you call that ochao tateru, right? You kind of whisk tea. The letter, the Chinese character that you would use for tateru is also the word that means like point, right? Or in baseball, it would be like a run.
Okay.
So it kind of had like a double meaning. So they went with that.
That's
Um,
convenient.
what is kind of interesting though is that during the exhibition games, honestly, as what my honest thoughts were like, man, this is like a really clownish Japanese team, right? I mean, these guys who, there's a great documentary on Koshien that's on Netflix right now. If you want to see what that culture is like, just take a look at that, right? And so these guys that were basically borderline abused through high school are now, you know, laughing in the dugout. I mean, it really, they had like a very kind of like Latin American vibe to them, And watching that, I kind of thought like, man, this is like watching like a Brazilian soccer team trying to play defense, right? Like, I'm not really like something's always going to go kind of wrong because, I kind of think that there is like a national character that every country and stuff has. But what was interesting in that first game, though, right, against Taiwan, you just kind of saw the expressions. They were just different. It was just different, right? There wasn't, yeah, they're having a good time, but it turned serious all of a sudden, And so, I think that, Ohtani talked about this. Like Seiya Suzuki, who's the same age as Ohtani, and therefore can kind of like, right, kind of tease him and stuff. And he's been kind of teasing him over the years, even since he's come here. Suzuki talked about how, yeah, the younger players are like terrified to talk to him, right? Just because stature wise, it's just such like an imbalance. So that this whole exercise, and Ohtani talked about this too, was really the whole point of this was, hey, so we can kind of communicate and just kind of break down these barriers of seniority. And when you really think about it, you talk about the Dodgers. I mean, they do all their like stupid celebrations, right? I mean, I guess people like, but like
People want the matcha whisking or whatever to come to be the Dodgers celebration
Yeah,
now.
well, they do like the hip blocking thing, and I think like all those like little things actually, right? And even if you go back to his time with the Angels when they got that samurai helmet, right? I think Ohtani has kind of taken a bit of like American kind of baseball culture, right? I mean, actually, in the last tournament, I don't know if you remember, but Lars Nootbaar had that what is it, that pepper thingy dispensing thingy
Grinder.
grinder. um, and so yeah, I think he's kind of used that as a tool to kind of build, some chemistry on the team. Especially, I think that there is becoming this bigger divide, between the Japanese players, right, the older ones that have been here for a while now, and like the younger players. Again, never even played against Ohtani in Japan, right? I mean, well, there are some of the older Japanese guys might have, right? Like Okamoto before coming here, obviously he played against Ohtani. But a lot of the younger guys really didn't. So this was a good way to kind of break the ice, and that from that standpoint, it's been really kind of interesting.
What is the plan with Yamamoto going forward?
So he's going to pitch in the quarterfinals here, right? They're going to get the runner-up from the group of the Dominican Republic and Venezuela. My guess is that they wanted to line him up that way to probably have him available in some form in the final. Now I don't think they're going to. I mean,
Extra bullets.
yeah. I mean, here's the thing though. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I am down on this Japanese team, right? I mean, Kikuchi looked terrible in the second game against Korea. Sugano, I know only gave up one run in his start, but looked, I would argue, even worse. I mean, that guy looks very hittable right now.
They're
And
in a dogfight with Australia.
yeah,
What's going on?
yeah. Um, I mean, frankly, I think the second best pitcher that they have right now outside of Yamamoto, I mean, assuming you're excluding Ohtani from this
I
equation,
was hoping you would say Ohtani.
is a guy who's actually going to pitch tonight, I think, is Hiroto Takahashi. He was on the team last time as a 20-year-old. He's now 23. My guess, he's going to be a Dodger in a couple of years. I spoke to a scout today who's over there. He kind of on the spectrum of things, he kind of put him in between Yamamoto, and Imai, who signed this offseason with the Astros. So, smaller guy, throws really hard. It's got the forkball. Probably doesn't have kind of the range of pitches and maybe the pitchability that a guy like Yamamoto has, but this kid's pretty electric. And so for me, he's the second best pitcher on the team. I would have stuck him in front of the major leaguers again. But again, anytime you're dealing with Japanese culture, the seniority and that type of stuff comes into factor. So I don't think the Dodgers have to worry too much about Yamamoto burning himself out in this thing. I think right the next round, what is it, 80? I think is the limit for him.
I, no, the last round is 80. I think it goes up
No, it's
twice.
95. I think it's 95 final.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll be 80, you know.
Great research on our part.
Yeah. So I just don't think Japan's gonna I don't know. I'd be kind of surprised if they got there, outside of their top few hitters right now. It's Otani, it's Suzuki, it's Yoshida. Murakami has not hit well. He didn't hit great in the last tournament. Defensively, I don't think they're very good either. Yoshida's, in the outfield, he doesn't move as well as he used to last time. They got Murakami at first base, which looks like kind of a,
A
problem waiting
preview
to
of things to
happen.
come.
Yeah. So, we'll see though. Again, anytime, they can bunt a guy over. They're pretty good at that. So if it's a close game, maybe that'll be the difference. But what has been interesting though, I think about Ohtani, right? Now, granted, the level of pitching here obviously is not right what it is in the major leagues. I mean, the first game against Taiwan, I think the guy was throwing like 85 or something. Um, but what has been interesting is kind of the different roles Ohtani can play, right? At least again, against this level of pitching, it's like, there are times he's like the table setter, right? He's fine taking the walk. He's fine just kind of getting on base. When there are guys on base, he's the guy that can drive the ball out. And you really kind of see the change in approach from at bat to at bat, whereas probably in the major leagues, a little bit harder to do when everybody's throwing 100 on every pitch. But, from that standpoint, I think that this has really kind of been interesting. And, I know we always kind
That's,
of like to compare players from like different eras, right? But it would have been kind of interesting to see a guy like Ohtani in an era where, again, not every pitch is coming in 100, because again, you kind of actually see like his versatility like in kind of a different way, right? I mean, it does feel like he's two or three batters in one in the role he's playing right now.
I mean, the Dodgers could have used some of that in I think various parts of the postseason last year when he was going through his ups and downs.
Well, like I said, when he's not facing 100 every
Yeah,
time, I
yeah,
mean, you gotta
that's
give the Phillies some credit for that.
that helps. I don't know, man. Do you see Christopher Sanchez's start? Very different looking pitcher than the Dodgers got in the NLDS. Um, Yeah, Hae-Sung Kim hit a home run against Japan. How about that? Now he also apparently hurt his hand in that
Yeah.
game, sliding into a base. We did ask Dave Roberts about that today. He did not have an update. Didn't seem too aware even of the injury, so maybe that's a good sign. Maybe it's not. Well, I think we'll find out more in the coming days there. And then Edwin Diaz, I don't know if you saw in his in Puerto Rico, taking the mound though, closing out the first game for them. That was a cool moment for him. Came out to Timmy Trumpets. Obviously had the knee injury in the last WBC that if it wasn't for that, I mean, we'd maybe be talking about this guy as like the modern day Mariano Rivera or the next Kenley Jansen or something. So yeah, that was cool to see. And yeah, it's and then Kike Hernandez, he was back in Dodger camp today after going out to Puerto Rico for a couple games. All right. Uh,
Why doesn't he just stay out there?
I mean, he does have he just had a kid. B, like he does have some rehab work and stuff to do over here. But I think it was
Just do it there. What do they? I mean, what is there like some machine that they only have at Dodger Camp?
they're paying him money, but I think it was
He
cool.
can talk to. He's got a phone. He can call Dr. Elatraj.
All right, that can be your next column. The Dodgers should have let Kike stay. His hair is still dyed blonde, if you were wondering. And yeah, it was. I think his, like we mentioned earlier, I think his quotes about just what the WBC means. And now he did say, I played in 5 World Series, so maybe that's kind of part of it. But I think does kind of speak to, especially, you know, not that the American players don't care, but it's I would almost say that for a lot of these players from other places, it seems like the way American players think about the World Series and like the significant, like the cultural significance of it. If you're a baseball player who grows up here, like the WBC almost has that if you come from somewhere else, right?
Yeah, because I think anytime you're leaving another country, it's like you're right to come here. It's kind of like I'm going out to conquer the world, so to speak. And there you're kind of doing it like in a very like literal sense, right? It's kind of our country against your country. And and again, I think the fact that somebody like Scooble, right, who as much as he had on the line, the fact that like he even gave it a second thought whether or not, right, to continue pitching or not, or just go back to the Tigers camp, I think does kind of speak to the atmosphere, right? And like once you're kind of around that, I think it's kind of hard to pull out of that. And so again, I'd like to see a bigger, maybe not bigger, just because there are only so many teams that could be part of this thing, right? The reality is only so many countries play baseball. But yeah, I would like to see kind of a more kind of fleshed out version of this thing, just so that you know, they can. I think it would benefit the sport. Whatever injuries come out of it, I think it'll benefit the sport.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back to the Dodgers real quick before we get out of here. What else do you need answered, or are you looking at the rest of
I mean,
Dodgers spring
we're
here?
looking at Roki, right? I mean, he was kind of coming in. It was kind of the one thing that we thought, okay, we're not really sure of how this is going to go, and it kind of does matter. Um, Not so sure how much it matters for the team, if I'm going to be honest, but it's just the fact that like he's at least in the Japanese think it's like a generational talent and right where
Has
it's going to
has
go.
his absence been a storyline like around the Japanese team in this tournament?
Not really, because I don't think he was going to start, right? And so maybe it will down the road as right. I mean, because now what we're seeing with Japan is that not only is their starting pitching kind of shaky, but the bullpen also doesn't inspire a ton of confidence. So maybe they could kind of use him, but again, Roki in Japan is a very kind of divisive figure, right? People either really like him or really don't. It was kind of interesting, and so one of the last days that I was out at camp, a former Japanese player was there, and kind of advised him, right? Uh, you don't need a third pitch, right? And actually, if anything, I guess his argument was kind of more the release point, right? Is that you should kind of keep that right fastball, forkball. Adding a third thing is just going to kind of screw you up. What's interesting, Roki said, I'm not going to add one. So at least he said that on camera. So we'll see where this goes, right? I think the Dodgers have found that, Roki's kind of got on a mind of his own and isn't necessarily with their program. And I think it's very interesting just because the player in question, I'll probably write about this later, so I won't say who it is yet, but you know, um, who's to say that they're wrong? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, hey, they've won 3 of the 5 World Baseball Classics. For all we know, they know what they're doing, and we don't. Um, right? But I think that that's kind of part of what makes all of this like really kind of interesting, And I mean, kind of going back to the WBC too. I mean, I really do kind of miss the days. Look, I think the Champions League, right, which is kind of the equivalent of like Major League Baseball for soccer, is like a magnificent invention of sorts, right? You get all the best players like in one league. That said, what has kind of been lost is this thing of right, right before you were born, Jack. When I was a kid, you watched Brazil play, you knew that was Brazil, right? You watched Italy play, you knew that was Italy, and now because they're all kind of in the same competition and kind of right, they're part of, and that's where they make their money. So that's where right they spend most of their time. Obviously, those are the tactics they learn. It's become pretty the thinking, right? Even kind of globally has been everybody more or less kind of thinks the same now, right? And it is kind of interesting with baseball right now. It's still at a stage where, right, they kind of have their domestic leagues, and while the NPB has certainly tried to import a lot of thinking from the United States, there are definite things that they do in Japan that are very different from the way they do things here. Years ago, I went to go watch in 2017, Otani's last year in Japan. Watched him pitch at home, and this is a visiting player lays down a sac bunt. They stop the game and they present the man with flowers because it was his 150th career sacrifice bunt.
Yeah.
And the next day, I was talking to the GM of an American League team, and that guy was just cracking up, like, "How many runs do you think that guy has cost his team over his career?" You know, but again, so just the way people think about the game is like completely different, right? And like, look, like on a 162 games, you probably don't want to be bunting all the time. But that's also a skill, right? I mean, the right with the ghost runner at second base, that's a Japan usually gets that guy in because they're gonna bunt him over to third no matter what. So even again, when it comes to stuff like pitching philosophy and right, the type of repertoire you should have, I think that it is kind of interesting anytime you can have like different ideas in there. And I think, again, we'll probably see, we're going to see a bit of that in the WBC. And I think the more, foreign players come here and have success, right, I think they're going to, right, American players will gradually be introduced to kind of foreign ideas. We've seen Mookie Betts already, obviously working with Yada Sensei, right? Right.
He's still carrying those javelins around every day, even without Yama or Yada here. He's
Yeah.
working on it.
Yeah. So, I think, and that's kind of how the game's going to kind of evolve. And I kind of like that part of it. So, again, it's going to be really interesting. Roki, I think, is just so interesting in so many different ways, right? I mean, it's just kind of who's right. I like the fact that he kind of upsets everybody. It's kind of funny to me.
People, I mean, he made his second start of the spring after we recorded last week, but you know, the first inning was a unmitigated disaster as far as like a Cactus League inning can go. And then the next two, again, as it comes back to this point about like the third pitch or whatever, which we did put a lot of focus on coming into camp, like the real reality is he's got to just command the fastball because when he did that those last two innings, and he talked about, he felt like his body, whatever, his his upper body was kind of leaning towards third base. Like this guy, we talked about it after. This guy is either like really in tune with his body or really good at making excuses when things go poorly. And I think we're going to find out over time, like which is which. But those last two innings clearly gave him some confidence and clearly gave the Dodgers some confidence. Like Dave Roberts shut down all talk about whether they were concerned with him, if he wouldn't be in the opening day rotation. I followed up with Mark Pryor this week to kind of ask, like, hey, what was your message to him after that first inning? What did you guys take out of it? And he kind of pointed to even with them, like they're still learning him and they're still even trying to figure out with him, like, okay, what does he want from us? What is he trying to get out of various situations, especially in the spring?
He wants them to stay out of the way, dude.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe. But that to me is kind of the part that's as interesting as anything else is, not just how the pitch mix looks or whatever, but like, can he in this environment kind of do the things that show the Dodgers and the people around the team that he's making the kind of progress they want to see? Because as much as anything, that's kind of what they're evaluating. Like we talk about, they don't need him to be good this year. That's true. They can win a World Series with Roki Sasaki being a non-factor. Longer term, they do need him to be good. Like it's going to become a lot tougher 3 to 5 years from now if he's not like a quality starting pitcher in your rotation. And I do think that's kind of what's interesting right now is he's being graded and getting opportunities at the big league level because it's not just about right now. It's about helping him kind of develop and progress. And as much as anything, I think that's the part that has been interesting to watch evolve going back to last year, this spring, you know, down to why he's going to be throwing on a backfield tomorrow instead of a Cactus League game. So, yeah,
Yeah,
luckily,
I mean, I'll recommend the viewers, right? If you haven't read that story that I wrote, whenever that what was it last week, the quotes there are very interesting. Um, and again, like there are a number of different ways, excuse me, to read into them, right? I mean, is he really in tune with his body? Is he making excuses? Is he overthinking, which you don't want? Excuse me. Um, so yeah, um,
am I getting you sick through our Zoom now? What's
no, I've been kind of sneaking
Oh,
almonds
good. You're
because they're
choking on your snack almonds.
yeah, and they kind of the skin kind of sometimes it comes out, and I got like almond skin fragments in my throat.
Thank you for such a detailed description.
I'm like Roki. I I can break down what's going wrong in very minute detail. But anyway, I would love to, leave it in the comment. Read the quotes. Tell us what you think where Roki is, right? Is he on it? Is he making excuses? Is he overthinking it? Which is all, I think they're all possibilities. So
Wow. Look at you. Driving engagement. Great job.
I know. I'm not sure. I don't know. Are we getting engagement so far?
I mean, everybody who's watching this is engaged, so that's good. Yeah. No, as a quick note as we leave, it has been nice to see people that followed us from our old show over here and new people have stumbled upon us. So, yeah, I'm, we care enough about it so that we can battle through this with my voice quickly fleeting, and Dylan choking on almonds. So that's how it goes. All right. Well, Dylan will be in Miami next week. I guess that's when I'll talk to you next on here. I will be here for another. We're inside 2 weeks, so close to being done with spring. Even Max Muncy today was like, "Yeah, we don't really know what to do with ourselves. Like this camp's feeling really long."
Have you gone back car racing?
No, I have not gone back to kart. Okay, kart racing. It'll give the audience the wrong idea. We're not car racing on the Loop 202 out here. Kart racing at Andretti's. No, no, I've been sick. I haven't done anything except go to the ballpark or lay in bed and watch the game on my laptop.
What our boss has to think, right? You just didn't skip days of work just to go kart racing.
Yeah,
Top golf is next door. Just make
yeah,
it
you got me.
happen.
All right. Thank you guys. We'll talk to you next week.